If you're looking to build a complete data analytics project all the way from raw data to business insights, you're in the right place. Companies no longer want to hire people who just know how to build charts. They want people who can understand the entire data pipeline, all the way from raw messy data to clear business insights for stakeholders. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a complete data analytics project from end to end. I'm going to walk you through the 4 necessary steps to build a complete project from scratch. After going through these 4 steps of how to build a complete data project from end to end, I'm going to show you exactly how to add it to your portfolio and give you next steps so you can get started today. And we're gonna do all of this in under 10 minutes. So let's get started and get right to it. Today, we're gonna use one of my favorite analytics platforms, KNIME, because it's gonna be a great way for me to visualize the entire process for you and show you how to build a complete project. KNIME is a free open source analytics platform that lets you build visual step-by-step workflows to clean, analyze, and visualize data. If you enjoyed this project, you can grab the exact template that I showed you today below and get started right now. Step 1 of any data project has to be data understanding. Because if you don't understand your data yet and you don't know what you have, you can't actually build things with it and get insights from it. This includes things like observing your data set, exploring different fields, highlighting missing values, looking for weird formats that need to be fixed, and also seeing if there are any duplicates. So I'm going into KNIME and looking into this template, and here is our sample data set that is included. And if you want to follow along with me, you can grab the link to this exact template below and get started, or you can also import your own data set and explore on your own, which I would obviously highly recommend. In this template, we can see a bunch of visualized steps, and each step is called a different node and has a different action to our data set. So some of these nodes or pieces are importing data, some of them are cleaning data, and some of them are visualizing data. Each one has a different role in our entire project, and we're gonna walk through each one. So the first node is actually importing our sample data set, but I do wanna highlight 2 other nodes that connect to other data sources. So you can actually read in Excel files, in Google Sheets, you can authenticate with Microsoft, you can bring in CSV files. There are so many different data sources you can use. But let's look into the sample data set we have. And I had to do some research because I'm not an economist, so I wasn't super familiar with the context of this data set, but don't worry, I did the research for y'all. This is the World Bank country metadata table used to classify countries. So every row is basically a country or some sort of region, so that's the granularity of this data set. And then it has different columns or attributes like income level, region, currency, and government accounting type. So already looking into this, I'm seeing a bunch of missing values in the currency column, the region column, income group, lots of missing values. If I also click on the statistics tab here, we have a bunch of high-level descriptive statistics for each column in our data set, which is great because we can see the data type for each column, the number of missing values, the number of unique values, and then minimum, maximum, mean, and other statistics for each column. And I'm already seeing that a bunch of these columns actually have a lot of missing values. I'm also seeing some wrong data types too that are gonna need to be fixed. So for example, for latest industrial data and latest trade data, these are classified as numbers or integers. That's the data type that they currently are. And we can see that they are coming out as actual numbers. So like 1,973. But what it really means is 1973. It shouldn't be treated as an actual number that we're gonna like count up or something. It's more of like a categorical data type because it's a year. So now that we have a basic understanding of the context of our data and some of the things that we're gonna have to resolve, like missing values and wrong data types, we're gonna move into phase 2, which is data cleaning and transformation. Data cleaning and transformation is one of the most important parts of a data project because it actually determines the quality of your data, which determines the quality of your analysis. If you don't have good data going into your analysis, you're not gonna have good insights coming out. So we have to make sure our data is cleaned and transformed in a way where we can actually pull out useful insights. And of course, KNIME has a lot of data cleaning nodes. There's value lookup, group by, math formulas, unpivot, literally so many ways to clean, transform, and manipulate your data. So now we're gonna move to the second node, and the second node is actually gonna help us filter out all the columns that have too many missing values. So how many missing values is considered too many missing values? It honestly depends on your unique circumstance and analysis, but for the sake of this problem, we're gonna say 70% or more missing values is too many. So the parameter we're gonna use is 70%. So if a column has 70% missing values or more, it's gonna be removed from our data set because we can't really do much with that column and it's not gonna have enough completeness and information for us to analyze. Now that we've gotten rid of columns that have too many missing values, now we're gonna remove rows that have certain missing values. So now we're gonna configure this node to actually remove rows with a missing currency unit or a missing 2 alpha code. That's these columns right here, and I actually looked look this up for y'all because I didn't know what a 2 alpha code is, but it is a code used to represent countries and regions. So for example, for the United States, the code is US. So we're gonna remove rows that don't have an alpha code or a currency unit, because how are we supposed to use that data and analyze it if we don't even know what the currency is? And notice that as I go through this workflow and keep executing different steps of our analysis, our data set below is changing and updating accordingly. Our next step of data cleaning is gonna be handling missing values. And in the real world, there's a lot of different things you can do with missing values. For string data, you can replace them with a string like unknown or NA. For numeric data, sometimes it makes sense to impute those missing values with zeros, or sometimes that can be the worst thing to do and it's better to leave them null. It really depends on the circumstance. But in this case, we're gonna replace all the missing values with NA for all of these string fields. So we have special notes, income group, all these different columns here. So now we've handled all of our missing values by removing columns, rows, and imputing missing values. But now we have to deal with a few important date columns. If you remember the date columns I pointed out before, they had commas in them because they were actually being treated like a number or an integer. We need to change those to a string data type so that way they're interpreted as like a categorical variable, because years are really a category more than a number. Because we're not gonna sum up a bunch of dates, you know, we're not gonna say 2022 plus 2023. That doesn't make sense. So we can use the number to string node and actually put in these 2 date fields, and it's gonna automatically convert them from numbers to strings. And finally, this is gonna be our last step of data cleaning before we get to step 3 of our project. If we look at some of our date columns, they actually have a bunch of extra characters and words in the string value. For example, latest population census, some of these dates look good. They look like actual years, but some of them have a bunch of words like expected and population figures, blah, blah, blah. We don't need all that, we just need the year. So we can actually write an expression that pulls out a substring of the whole string. So we're gonna keep just that year value at the beginning of the string. That way we have true years that we can actually count and aggregate by. So these are the expressions that are gonna do that for us. And also for these columns, we're gonna fill in or impute missing values with the string NA. That way we know that it's just a missing value. It's super clear. And after running everything, we're done with data cleaning, and now it's time for step 3 of our data project, which is data visualization. And of course, KNIME has so many other different chart types. There's scatter plots, heat maps, histograms, box plots, literally anything you could probably think of. If we wanted to take this a step further, we could also do more advanced analytics and machine learning, like random forest, decision trees, linear, logistic regression, so many different node options to take this analysis a step further. First, we're gonna make a pie chart to actually visualize how many countries and regions are in each income group. So this is kind of our distribution of income. Pie charts are really good for if you have a small number of categories that you wanna count things in. Next, we're gonna look at our government accounting distribution. And I'll be honest, y'all, I'm not an economist, so I actually had to look this up. Consolidated central government accounting means that they combine multiple government entities into one financial view. A budgetary central government accounting means that they reflect only the core central budget and exclude some agencies or levels. If I were doing this for a real company, I would have to have a much deeper understanding of what that means, but it's okay. This is a sample analysis. Next, we're gonna use the sorter node to actually sort all of our countries based on the year of the most updated census data we have for them. And then after they're in order, we can visualize them in a bar chart. I don't think this data set has been updated since 2020, but it looks like most of our countries are pretty updated on their census data. And for some reason, it looks like a lot of countries stopped after 2011. That's something I would probably look into more as the next step. And some countries don't even have any census data since 1943, which is a long time ago. And those are just some basic quick visualizations, but of course there are so many different things you can do. When you're visualizing data, you should always be curious and think about what matters most to the business. What variables are actually interesting enough to look into? And what's gonna tell the best story? Now that we've finished the technical part of our analysis, we're gonna move into step 4, which is storytelling and insights. The top insights that we can see from this analysis are, most of our countries are not high income because most countries fell in the middle and lower income groups. The second big insight that I see is that financial reporting differs among countries. So there's different accounting systems, and I would have to dig in a little bit more to see if those were actually something we could compare apples to apples. The third big insight I see is that we have a lot of stale old data because a lot of countries haven't reported their census data in quite a long time. So we don't have fresh new data for every single country because a lot of them are missing recent census data, which actually hurts the credibility of our analysis a lot. We can't be using data from 1943. Now we've completed our entire end-to-end data project, but how do we actually add this to our portfolio. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is have an executive summary at the very top of your project. In here, you need to explain the entire project, the methodology, and what you discovered in only a few sentences. Summarize your entire project here because a lot of hiring managers aren't gonna dig into every single part of your project. They're just gonna read a few sentences and that's it. After that, you wanna highlight the business problem that you're trying to address. What are you trying to learn and what problem are you trying to solve? Then go into the specific skills and methodology that you use in your analysis. Highlight any technical skills, any tools, any coding languages, and also what type of an analysis you did. Then you wanna highlight your results and recommendations. What did you learn from this and what do you recommend for the business based on what you found? And at the very end, you wanna end with some next steps and talk about what you would look into more if you had more time. So now you've seen the complete process from end to end of how to start with raw data, clean it and transform it, visualize it, and create business insights. And we did all of this in KNIME. If you wanna get started on this exact project I've showed you today, I've linked a KNIME template below that you can open directly in your browser. You'll just have to make a free account, but there's nothing to install and you can get started immediately. It's the fastest way for you to try out this workflow yourself. And you can also go to KNIME's website and look through their templates. They have templates for all sorts of analyses, and you can use these templates as is, or you can use them as inspiration to build your own project from scratch. So let me know what you think and happy building. Sending you lots of big data energy. Bye.